following is a true story. And I share it with you all because I refuse for this story to be silent.
For you all to push past the judgment, let go of the hate, and simply just love one another. Because someone's life depends on it.
What I challenge us is that we have to step out in that vulnerability. We have to get past that fear or that hesitation so that we can make sure that our voices are heard. You know, we are all, every single moment of our life, at a pivotal place where we can choose to be vulnerable, or we could choose to keep that effect, that chameleon effect on. So what will you choose? I say we choose being vulnerable so that we can be courageous. Why do I say it's hard to see that picture? Why am I stepping out in vulnerability when I share this picture with you? Because I feel extremely self-conscious in that photo. And I know that we all share in that feeling. We all have those photos that we'd rather not share.
Whether you are a part of the community, whether you know somebody specifically, or you don't, to what you think, don't know somebody, we're all a part of it. And we have to work together in order to be able to create those safe spaces for each other.
That picture, whoever that is, whatever that is that motivates you, that is what takes us to the next step. So I'm going to share with you what motivates me. And let's see if some of those relate for you and how we make sure that we utilize that to keep telling our stories.
You don't have to wear a uniform to have that same impact. You all, every single one of you, have the ability to have the same impact that I do as a first responder. We all have that ability every single day.
Being vulnerable equals being courageous, equals being heard to leave that positive impact. We have to be willing to tell our story. You know, that speech that I shared with you all, that brought me to the top 28 speakers in the world. But you know what happened when I made it to the semifinal round? The judges weren't ready to hear my story.
You have to read it as it was when I did my original research. It says, I will not consider any contestant's age, sex, race, creed, national origin, disability, profession, or political beliefs. That's what it was when I read it. And so I crafted up a very eloquent letter to Toastmasters, and I told them, hey guys, we're missing something. Where is gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, so much other language that should be here. This is 2021. We are way behind the times here. And so,
but I took it a step further and I said, I'm going to continue to be vulnerable and I'm going to continue to be courageous. I'm going to continue to make sure the story is heard by challenging Toastmasters. What you have up on your screen here is the Judges Code of Ethics for the International Toastmasters Organization. The red writing you see that is in bold is what I articulated to Toastmasters that needed to be added. You see,
no person will ever again compete in Toastmasters and question if they advanced or didn't because of how they look.
Unit 2365, please respond to a check on the welfare. Caller advised they have not heard from their boyfriend in some time and they received some concerning messages. Unit 2365, I'm en route. It was just another day on the job. But you see, today was going to be different. Just 2 short weeks prior, I was sitting in the chief's office, signing my resignation letter. I had fallen in love. There were just 2 small hurdles to overcome. 1, I had to move halfway across the country to be with the person I fell in love with. And 2, the person I fell in love with was another woman. You see, this meant I had to come out to my family and tell them something I had known about myself for quite some time. Now, I'm grateful to say, after the shock factor wore off, my family was very accepting. Unfortunately, for my then girlfriend, now wife, she faced a very different scenario. Her father, upon hearing the news that she was with me, another woman, sent her a text message that would shatter her world and enrage me. That text message read, if we were back in Russia, I would chop you up and feed you to the pigs. Unit 2365. I'm unseen. My partner and I arrived to a 3-story complex, and we were immediately met by the caller, who was a bit frantic, explaining they hadn't heard from their boyfriend in some time. A neighbor stepped out who actually knew the caller, so they went ahead to sit with them while we went forward to investigate. As we arrived at the door, we looked around, but we couldn't really see anything. We knocked loudly, but there was no answer. Based on the situation, we were given permission to go ahead and make entry. I positioned myself in front of the door as I drew my service weapon, and I dropped my shoulder, busting and yelling, "Police! Police!" I was immediately looking in a living room. While my partner advanced forward, I turned once behind him, and once again, as I was staring down a hallway, I heard the sound click. Now, in law enforcement, that's a good sound. It means my partner holstered his weapon. There was no longer a threat. So I went ahead and holstered my own. I was about to exit out of the apartment when I heard him say, "Hey, come in here." I took a few steps forward and I found myself in the doorway of the master bedroom. Now, it was dark, but there was just enough light peeking through the blinds when I saw the body. A young man was laying in the bed. He had a bag over his head with duct tape around the bag, and a tube slithered underneath the duct tape. That tube was connected to a tank on the ground. That young man was deceased by suicide. Unit 2365, go ahead and roll medics to my location. We have an apparent suicide. Had been a cop for about 4 years at this time, and I'm grateful to say had never actually found someone deceased on a suicide call. But this was a crime scene, so as I began to exit out, I found myself back in that living room, and a piece of paper caught my eye. I went over to the coffee table, and I began to read what appeared to be a suicide note. See, this young man described how life in general was just stressful. Everything from work and friends and family. And then it hit me. You see that caller? That frantic caller who was so concerned about their boyfriend? Was a man. And this young man went on to write that he ultimately took his life for being rejected because he's gay. Could have easily been my wife writing that letter simply for living authentically and loving me. You know, my wife and I, we faced many moments of discrimination over the years. Everything from verbal arguments and awkward stares to even the need for a protective order for the safety of ourselves and our children. And it is 2021, and we have come a long way since the Stonewall riots in 1969, but we have a long way to go. You know, we share 3 beautiful children together. Our 11-year-old son, he described to me one day as I stood there at the bus stop proudly that he got into a verbal argument with another student. You see, this student told him that couldn't be me, his mother, standing there. No, that must have been his father, maybe his brother, an uncle, or a friend, or simply just any other man. All because I have short hair. Our 17-year-old son, he should never be concerned about going to high school and facing a bully just because he's proud to be a young gay teenager. No person should ever face judgment or ridicule for who they love or how they identify. So I stand here. I stand here in vulnerability, and I stand here in courage. And I implore you all to push past the hate, let go of the judgments, and simply just love one another, because someone's life depends on it. You see that young man? That young man who laid in that bed with that bag over his head and the tape around his neck? His life depended on it. My own wife whose father sent her a text message and said he'd rather see her chopped up and fed to the pigs. Her life depends on it. And it could be anyone. Your own mother, father, brother, sister, friend, colleague, or even your own child whose life depends on it. Unit 2365, I'll be 10-7 for the last time.